Hello again, everyone. In our session, we're going to be looking at Active Directory Federation Services authentication policies, including device registration and workplace join. We are in the Active Directory Federation Services console, and we want to expand service. And we want to click on authentication methods. In the middle pane, we can see that we have our authentication methods. We have primary authentication methods, which include extranet and intranet. You can see the default types of authentications listed there. You have forms authentication. You have Microsoft Passport authentication. Forms authentication is the type of authentication where the client enters the username and password in the web page. Microsoft Passport authentication would be a central authentication as provided by Microsoft that offers you a single logon. For example, that probably would be your Hotmail account username and password, or any other Microsoft service that you use. Your Microsoft Passport would be your logon. So you can use either Forms authentication or Microsoft Passport authentication. And I think those are there by default. For the intranet, you can use either Forms authentication, the Windows authentication, which would be your authentication from your domain controller, Active Directory Domain Services. And again, the intranet also uses the Microsoft Passport authentication. Now, to configure the authentication settings, you can either click Edit here on the right-hand side, or you can go to Actions and click Edit Primary Authentication or Edit Multi-Factor Authentication. Let's click on Edit under the Primary Authentication method here. And we can see that we already have the boxes checked off, and that would be your default. If you require other types of authentication, you can also check those off. And by selecting more than one authentication method, you are enabling the users to have a choice of what method to authenticate with at sign-in. The same thing goes for your intranet. You have a choice of different authentication methods, with the default being already checked. Over in the Actions pane, again, you are able to edit the primary authentication or edit the multi-factor authentication. On this page, you can also click on the multi-factor tab to the right of primary. We're going to click on it. And you can choose additional authentication methods. If you're going to be using multi-factor, you have to at least select one of the following methods, and we're going to choose certificate authentication here. And then we're going to select OK. You can see here on the multi-factor authentication method that we now have certificate authentication. One of the things that Active Directory Federation Services offers us is what we refer to as workplace join, where you can use your own device to access resources on the web server in the partner organization. But to do this, you first have to configure device registration. So we're going to click on device registration here in the left panel. And what we want to do here is simply enable device registration. And once we enable device registration, we're going to be provided with conditional access based on the claims that are set up for the device. Here we're going to click on Enable Device Registration. And we can see here that device registration is configured and device authentication is enabled. What we can do is edit the claims, the access control policies by clicking here on Edit Access Control Policies. You can choose an access control policy that you want. The one that we have here selected is Permit Everyone and require multi-factor authentication. You can do different types of access control policies. Let's click on OK to continue. We can also look at the properties of device registration and make some changes here. As you can see, we can configure the maximum number of joined devices per user. We can also automatically remove unused devices. And here, once we have that check, you can choose a number of days before an unused device is removed. So all of that you can configure under device registration. Let's click on OK. I want to come back to Workplace Join. I had said that with Workplace Join, the user will be able to access company resources and services using their personal devices. Personal devices such as probably their own laptop, their own tablet, their own phone. And when your personal device is joined to the workplace, it becomes known as a known device. And therefore, it provides that single sign-on to the workplace resources and applications. If we configure what we call on-premise device registration, and we're using an iPhone or a tablet, the first thing that you need to know is that the device has to trust the certificate that was used to configure the Active Directory Federation services. If that does not happen, then Workplace Join will not succeed. So if the certificate was issued from the certificate authority within your workplace, and this is your certificate server, then you have to install that certificate, authority certificate, on your iOS device. If your certificate authority is published on a website, however, you can browse the website from your iOS device and install that certificate. If you choose to use the Azure Active Directory device registration, if you choose to configure that type of device registration, then on your device, you want to navigate to this URL, https enterpriseregistration.windows.net enrollment, OTA profile, and you type the name of your domain, and you're going to be able to make the registration there. If you had configured the on-premise device registration service, then what you do is navigate to the device registration service on your iOS device. And you go to the URL, https ADFS 1S, the name of your organization, of your domain, and the rest of the URL that you see here. Once you access the URL, you're going to be prompted to log on and install the profile. Once you've installed that profile, your device might ask you for a password to unlock the device. But once that profile is installed, you will see that profile. If you're using an iPhone, you can go to Settings, General, and you will see the word Profile, and you will have the profile that allows you to use the single sign-on to log on to the resources for your company. In this session, we took a look at AD FS Authentication, device registration, and workplace join. This is the end of our session, and I would like to thank you for listening.